Well, good afternoon and welcome to the 33rd North American Cystic Fibrosis Conference. What an honor to be here with all of you today, our amazing group of professionals dedicated to the CF cause. I continue to be awed by you and your tireless commitment to collaboration and innovation across disciplines and borders. You are changing lives, and we thank you. I'd also like to send a warm welcome to all of you joining us online, especially those living with CF. You are at the heart of everything that we do. It's wonderful to have fellow board members here today, along with the team from Nashville office and volunteers from across the country. Thank you for your invaluable support. As we all saw last week, this is a time of extraordinary progress and exciting change for our community. The approval of the triple combination modulator has the potential to transform the CF landscape. And what timing! Since we're all here together, I'd like to take this special moment to celebrate that achievement and to thank you for making it happen. We are moving forward as quickly as possible to bring effective modulators to more people and target the underlying cause of their CF. We remain committed to addressing the many complications of CF and incorporating mental health into quality care to treat the whole individual with CF. We're also exploring amazing new technologies that could bring life-changing therapies to all people with CF, including those with nonsense and rare mutations. We could not have come this far without each of you. I am confident that together we will continue to build on the tremendous momentum that we have gained and one day reach our shared goal, the cure of CF. Today, it's also my privilege to share my deep gratitude to a dear friend, a special friend, and longtime colleague whose exceptional leadership and commitment to those with CF and their families has brought us to this exciting time. As some of you know, Dr. Preston Campbell will retire as president and CEO of the CF Foundation at the end of the year, following more than 30 years of service to people with CF and their families. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I would like to share how grateful we all are for Preston's enduring contributions to the CF community. Along with fellow board members, I also am proud to announce that Dr. Michael Boyle, friend of many of you, the Foundation's Senior Vice President for Therapeutics Development, will become the Foundation's next president and CEO at the beginning of the year. Now I want to take a moment to reflect on just a few of the countless ways that Preston has changed our community. From the beginning of his career as a CF Care Center director here in Nashville at Vanderbilt, then as the Foundation's chief medical officer, and now as CEO, Preston has brought the thoughtfulness of a devoted and dedicated physician and the resolve of a seasoned innovator to every challenge that he tackles. Though he is always the last to take credit, Preston helped drive unprecedented advances of CF treatment and care, and has led the way to bringing the essential voice of individuals with CF into everything that we do. Over the years, his caring leadership has strengthened us, strengthened our culture, and strengthened our leadership team, and shaped the progress of our community. As a CF parent, longtime volunteer, and leader of the board, I have always felt that Preston has walked hand in hand with me and with the entire CF community. Through setbacks and loss, through triumphs and gains, Preston has always kept us focused on the future and given us hope. Happy to share with you, though, that Preston is not going to be going too far. We're not saying goodbye to him. He will continue to play an important role improving the lives of people with CF. He will be a strategic advisor to the foundation team and focus on a number of issues, including learning more about the needs of our international CF community, especially in developing countries. And now I would like to share the thoughts of some special friends of Preston's who have worked closely with him over the years.
Preston is a truly caring person.
If you looked up the definition of a Southern gentleman, Preston would meet that definition.
Preston's played such a huge role at the CF Foundation for the last 20 years.
He wants to make sure that everyone with cystic fibrosis has a therapy that they will benefit from.
He has the intellect of a research scientist. At the same time, he's got the vision and the strategic thinking of a CEO. He's shown that over and over again, and that's provided direction for the CF community. And then lastly, he has the biggest heart. He's got the heart of a pediatrician and a father.
Preston is a person who loves to reassign credit. He builds remarkable teams, and then he gives them the freedom to take creative ideas forward because people know that he'll support them.
When Preston was at Vanderbilt, the clinic tripled in size, so he attracted many patients from Tennessee who previously had not been getting care.
Preston always puts the needs of people with CF first.
He encouraged the investigators, he encouraged the clinicians, the nurses, the social workers, everybody in a CF center.
He never lost focus on the importance of patient care in the clinical centers. He made sure that they were not shortchanged.
He's also brought care team members together, people from the community, and all of the different voices that are necessary to really address the problems of CF.
One thing that's essential about the way Preston approaches this is he is never going to leave anyone behind.
One thing that people may not realize is what an important role that Preston has played in guiding a lot of the new therapies that we have today, everything from inhaled antibiotics to the modulators. And he does this in Preston fashion, and this means meeting with companies that are struggling. And then, as Preston says, I may be just a baby doctor from East Tennessee, but then lays out exactly what the companies needed to do to move forward those therapies.
You could believe in what he said. You could take his word. If he promised something, you knew it would happen.
From Preston's time as a CF doctor, he understands the complexities of living with CF. There's not only the treatments, there's also this emotional side of needing support.
Preston has done everything he could to make life better for individuals with CF.
During Preston's time at the foundation, median predicted survival age has improved dramatically, going up by 1 year for every year that Preston has been involved with the foundation.
Preston could have done anything with his career. He's such a talented and compassionate person, and I'm just so grateful that he chose people with CF and the CF Foundation.
There's a Jewish concept that God withdraws from the world to enable people to step in and do the right thing. Preston leads in that way. He creates space for people to be the best that they can be, to come together to solve problems.
He works hard to make sure everyone feels included and important.
Preston learned this as a basketball player in college for Georgia Tech, and he continues to have that team spirit.
Preston, it's been my honor and my joy to work with you all these years, and I think I speak for everyone here when I say thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being the best advocate for people with CF of all ages.
For being a great mentor, somebody who's more concerned about the success of the science, success of treatments for people with CF and the whole community than your own success.
I count you as not only a colleague and mentor, but also as a friend.
How can we thank you for being the truest of friends? I don't know, but it would help if you could pay that $5 you owe me.
Preston, I want to thank you for your leadership, for your friendship, and for your stalwart dedication to something that's so important to so many of us.
And there's been times in my life where I've struggled with CF or I worry about my future. And I often think about how you always say the best is yet to come. And I really, truly hold on to that. You inspire me and you give me hope.
Phew. Preston, you have enriched us and you have made a difference in our lives. Because of you, our steward leader, we remain fiercely focused and more determined than ever to advance the mission we share. Please accept our deepest gratitude and our personal thanks. And please join me on the stage.
Thank you, Cam.
And there's a top that goes on that.
Okay, well, I'm going to put this over here, and I want you to stay here. You know, I've asked Cam to stay just for a second. Cam, I think you know. Thank you all. I'm kind of blown away. I had some prepared comments. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do them now, but thank you all very much. Cam, I think you know how much I appreciate your friendship and support over the years. But this is a perfect time for all of us to tell you how much we appreciate your leadership as a board member for 34 years now, 20 years as our board chair. You have assembled and led a very remarkable board, many of whom are here today, that is second to none. And I'll just tell you all that you all deserve so much credit for the progress made in CF. So let's give Cam a big hand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cam. Wow, you all are very nice. That was a beautiful video. Can I have a copy of that? You know, I'll just have to say, it's been a privilege for me to be part of the amazing story of cystic fibrosis and walk with you all on this journey. Today, what I'd like to do is talk about three aspects of the journey for me: the dream that motivated me, the remarkable changes that have occurred along the way, and then finally, what I'm thankful for as I look back on this journey. Now, as Cam mentioned, my CF journey began when I became the CF Center Director here at Vanderbilt approximately 32 years ago. And I quickly learned that patients give a lot more to us than we give to them. One of my first patients was a remarkable young lady named Natasha Watts. Natasha was just a very positive spirit and filled with joy. So you can understand why I was so devastated when Natasha passed away at the early age as a teenager. Her mom was kind enough to give me this brass paperweight, which you can't read, but it simply says, "Remember me, Natasha Watts." Now, Natasha's death at such a very young age had a pretty significant impact on me, and like many of you, like a lot of you in this room, I began to dream about curing cystic fibrosis. And ever since, this paperweight has been on my desk to remind me of the importance of the dream that we all share. Now, before I talk about, I'm going to switch now and talk about the changes, but before I do, I need to make sure that who gets the credit. And I'll tell you, from the very beginning, I've been amazed at the exceptionally collaborative CF community. Who is that community? This international community is everybody in this hall, everyone who's joining us online, people with CF, their families, volunteers, donors, caregivers, researchers, industry partners, and people who work at CF foundations or organizations throughout the world. Together, you have brought hope and moved us closer to realizing our dream. You know, as I look back over my career, I am proud of what I've done, but the real hero of this story is the CF community. It's you all working together, and we have to keep that going forward. So thank you all for that. Okay, so I'm going to go through some changes. I hope that this is very encouraging for you all. And the first change over the 21 years that I've been at the foundation has been the remarkable growth of the CF Foundation. Beryl Rosenstein, who was on the video, will remember this. When I joined the CF Foundation, the foundation's medical team was Bob Bell, the amazing president and CEO, and myself. The medical team was the two of us. Today, the medical group consists of more than 150 people located in our Bethesda office, in our laboratory in Boston, Massachusetts, led by Martin Mensa, and the TDN Coordinating Center located in Seattle, led by Nicole Hamlet, Chris Goss, with very important roles played by Jill Van Dalsen and Amy Hoffman. Now, why do I mention this change of 2 to 150? It's not about the numbers. It's not about a big group. The reason this is important is because it means we can do so much more and go so much faster than we ever could before, and we can race towards this cure that we dream about. You know, also the increase in medical funding has allowed us to do more and go faster. Rich Mattingly, our former chief operating officer, used to say, "Money buys science, and science buys lives," and he was right. When I joined the foundation in 1998, the medical budget at that time was $28 million. I thought that was a lot of money at the time. You know, but it's dwarfed by this year's medical budget of $220 million. You know, we have used this money to improve care, accelerate research, and develop new effective therapies. And let me give you some examples. Care improved because we were able to invest in the Care Center Quality Improvement Initiative, which really took off when I was able to successfully recruit Dr. Bruce Marshall to the foundation team. You know, I was able to get Bruce away from Utah, where he was currently practicing, because he grew up in Baltimore, which is not far from Bethesda. And more importantly, I think, he's a big Baltimore Orioles fan. He had actually practiced with the Orioles 1 week in the spring. Bruce, with help from the Dartmouth team, built our quality improvement program, which really changed everything. This program, which was all about teamwork, data, and continuous improvement, has driven significant improvements in outcomes like weight and lung function. at every single one of our care centers. And I'll tell you, Bruce, and this is happening all around the world, by the way, Bruce would be the first to tell you that you all deserve the credit for this. So thank you all for the work that you've done with this. Increased funding has also allowed us to build on the important 1989 discovery of the CF gene and accelerate our understanding of CF pathophysiology, molecular biology, and even the structure of the CF protein. Remember, money buys science and science buys lives. This new scientific knowledge has been translated into 12 new FDA-approved therapies for people with cystic fibrosis over the last 20 years. Yes. And this includes 4 that treat the basic defect, including the triple that was approved last week. I'll come back to the triple in a minute. But these scientific advances and the resulting new therapies are changing lives and bringing hope. Now, some would say that 12 therapies in 20 years is not so bad, but we wanted to go even faster. So what did we do? Well, 5 years ago, we recruited Dr. Bill Skatch, who many of you know, a truly remarkable physician scientist, to lead our research efforts. Now, Bill's a great scientist, but let me tell you, if you're going to cure cystic fibrosis, you have to be willing to take some pretty significant risk. And I learned that Bill was the right guy for the job because he taught himself how to hang glide. How do you do that? And then the first time, he stepped off a cliff. I don't mean a little baby hill. It was a real cliff. And then he soared up 6,000 feet, no joke, 6,000 feet in the air. Everyone there watching him was amazed. And I'm amazed at how fortunate we are to have Bill on our team focused on CF. Yeah, give Bill a hand. So I've made a case that we're going faster. Are we really going faster? What is the evidence for that? It could be the number of clinical trials, and I'll talk about that next. But we actually think that the number of companies that we meet with in the Foundation's office each year is a pretty good metric for how fast we're going. And I'll tell you that when I joined the CF Foundation, we were pretty lucky to meet with a couple of companies every year. And the first year, we met with one company, one of the 2 companies, was so small, we wondered if it was located in a garage somewhere. So the point is that there wasn't a lot of interest in CF by industry back then. Things have changed, thankfully. 5 years ago, the number of companies we met with was 26. This last year, the number of companies that we met with was 170. 170 companies interested in developing new therapies for people with cystic fibrosis. That's incredible, right? And I'll tell you, speaking of clinical trials, 20 years ago, clinical trials were also rare, so rare that we did not need a clinical trials network. Fortunately, Bonnie Ramsey was a little bit like Noah, who built the ark. She built our clinical trial network before the flood of clinical trials started. And the flood of clinical trials did come. Last year, we performed more than 50 CF clinical trials. And this was only possible because our international sites are also doing a fantastic job. 50 clinical trials. Approved therapies are also becoming available to younger and younger children. How great is it that newborn screening is now available in every U.S. state and in many countries across the world, so that infants can be diagnosed at birth instead of a year of age or much, much later. You know, this is possible because doctors Phil Farah and Frank Accursa, who I owe obviously $5 to from the video, and many others began working on newborn screening because they dreamed 20 years ago that this day would come. This year, we saw the first CFTR modulator extended to children as young as 6 months of age, and we look forward to the day when these highly effective modulators can be started in children at birth so we can prevent CF disease from ever happening. We're not only going faster, but we're also doing more. We've started many new programs for people with CF and their families. I'm very fortunate to have recruited Dr. Drusy Borowitz from Buffalo. You saw Drusy on the screen as well. Drusy has led our efforts to carefully listen to and partner with the CF community so we can serve them better. Under Drusy's leadership, the Community Partnerships team has done some pretty amazing things. They've developed ways to connect people through our peer-to-peer mentoring program and develop virtual events like BreatheCon, which are created by people with CF for people with CF. And you know, there are many more new programs, and I don't have time to list them all, but I'm proud of how we're taking on mental health, lung transplantation, difficult to treat infections, gastrointestinal issues, how to best manage a very difficult CF regimen, and access to care. And of all of these, the one that's most out of our control is access to care. Why is that? It's because we have to interface with politicians. I need not say any more. Mary Dwight and our policy and advocacy team are fighting on Capitol Hill, thankfully, and across the country for healthcare access every day. And you know, a lot of the larger groups look to us, and the reason they look to us is that we're usually one step ahead and punching way above our weight. Now, of all the changes, here's the best one, and Beryl alluded to this. Because care has improved and new therapies have been made available through your all's work, people with CF are living longer, healthier lives. The median survival of people with CF over the last 20 years has gone up 16 years, so that now the survival for people in the United States is in the late 40s. That's an increase of 10 months. Thank you. That's an increase of 10 months every single year. And people with CF, there's more adults with CF now than there are children, and this trend is only going to increase going forward. Now finally, I'll mention one more change, which is rooted in all the others that I've mentioned. CF was once a disease without hope. CF is now not only the most amazing story in medicine today, but it's because of your work, when you're down, don't forget this. Because of your work, hope now abounds. We need to finish, though, and to be clear, finishing the journey means curing CF for everyone. We won't leave anyone behind. Now, you're going to have to bear with me. I've got a few things that I want to tell you that I'm thankful for. I'm really thankful that, and I didn't do this, but I'm very thankful that I can say goodbye in Nashville, where my professional journey started. I'm thankful to Vanderbilt, who allowed me to be the center director, and for my Vanderbilt colleagues. Dennis Stokes was down front just a minute ago. You know, I'm thankful for Bob Bell, who recruited me to the CF Foundation. I would never have had the opportunity to pursue my dream in the meaningful way that I've had it not been for Bob. And I'm also thankful for Bob's entrepreneurial spirit and vision that has forever changed cystic fibrosis. You know, our volunteers are the best, and there are just way too many. Many of them are in this room, but there's way too many for me to mention. But I will have to mention one, and that's Joe O'Donnell. And one of the reasons I mentioned Joe is that there was a time that I leaned on Joe pretty hard. In fact, I wasn't sure if he was going to put up with me or not. I needed his advice, and we would spend hours a week on the phone, usually at night. And Joe could not have been more gracious or helpful with his advice. But that's really not why I'm mentioning Joe. Joe's done much more than give me advice. Joe and his wife, Kathy, have helped us raise hundreds of millions of dollars for CF, making the CF story possible. Joe is with us today. Joe, we all thank you. I'm thankful for every caregiver from all disciplines. I'm thankful for all researchers and all of our industry partners in the critical role that you all have had in this story. And I'm thankful for last week's FDA announcement of Vertex's Trikafta approval. You know, you'll hear more about Trikafta tomorrow, but I'll say now that I'm thankful that so many are going to benefit. And I'm thankful for the years and decades of life that will be added to individuals with cystic fibrosis. And I'm thankful for the tears that will be exchanged for many moments of joy because of this approval. All of this is possible because so many came together to create hope for a disease that once had no hope. What a tremendous accomplishment. You all don't know all of them, but I am thankful for the very talented team at the CF Foundation with whom I have the pleasure to work. There's never been a more qualified or inspirational group. Because of them, the foundation is now much stronger and better able to serve people with cystic fibrosis. There's so many that deserve recognition. But let me just mention the executive team, beginning with Mark Ginsky, our Chief Operating Officer, who's helped lead this effort of making us a better organization, along with Vera Twigg, our Chief Financial Officer, Mary Beth McMahon, our Chief of Staff, and Maren Goins, our Chief of Strategy. On a personal note, I would like to thank two people. Jackie Thompson was my assistant for 17 years, and Rebecca Berry has been my assistant for 3 years. Both are amazing. Both have blessed me in ways that I never deserved, and I could not have done this without them. Jackie, I know that you're listening, so thank you very much, and Rebecca, I thank you. I'm thankful for my family who are with me today. I owe so much to my lovely wife, who has been with me every step of the way on this journey. You know, when I would get home late at night from a trip, she would want to know how the progress was going. She understood the urgency of what we do. She understood and shared our dream. She has rejoiced with me when we had success, and she has comforted me when I was down. Elaine, I thank you for believing me and supporting me. I could not have done this without you. Thank you very much. So Elaine and I have 3 wonderful children, and I'm blessed by 2 grandsons, and they're actually here. The grandsons are up in the room, so don't worry about that. But my children are here. My daughter Eleanor is here from Scotland with Noel, and their son Ezra is upstairs. My son David is here with his wife Kristen, and my daughter Allison is here with her husband Cody, and their son Ellis is upstairs. I'm proud of you guys and very thankful for you and all that you've done to help me on this journey as well. Finally, I'm grateful for people with CF and their families. You all have taught me so much. You've taught me never to give up. You've showed me what courage is, that life is really about relationships, that we're stronger together, and the importance of hope and a dream. I'm a better person because of all of you. We've come a long way. We've come a long way. We really have, and we're celebrating that, but we're not done. Obviously, my dream, which I share with you, hasn't come true yet. So who's going to get us there? Well, I'm counting on you all. Look around. Look around. You are the ones that are going to make this happen. Our community, the foundation, the therapeutic pipeline has never, ever been stronger. Scientific breakthroughs are happening more frequently, giving us new, exciting ways to finish our journey. So don't stop. Don't stop dreaming of a day when our journey is over and people with CF, all people with CF can say, I used to have CF. And CF stands for Cure Found. And I'm going to be cheering for you the whole way. Thank you. Hey, now it's my pleasure to introduce my friend and colleague, Dr. Michael Boyle. I am thrilled to pass the baton to Mike. This is the right time, and Mike is the right person. I'll tell you, this has been a very carefully planned succession, and Mike is going to be a great president and CEO. You know, Mike is internationally known for his role in developing many of the transformative therapies that are now benefiting people with CF, and for starting the Johns Hopkins Adult CF program, which is now one of the top programs in the country. He's a beloved physician who still sees patients at Johns Hopkins. Somehow, and I really still am trying to figure this one out, we were able to recruit Mike 5 years ago to lead our therapeutic development efforts. And it's been a joy to have him on board. And more recently, he's actually been leading, and appropriately, our 5-year strategic plan, which he will lead going forward. And in this role, he has impressed absolutely everyone. Mike is devoted to his family. He and his wife, Lynn, have 3 very talented daughters. In fact, one is the first author on a paper at this meeting. That's pretty cool, right? It's very clear to everyone that Mike has both the capabilities and the vision to lead us into the future. But what I like most about Mike is his heart and his passion for our mission. Mike cares deeply about people with CF, the CF Foundation staff that he's going to lead, and the entire CF community. I have no doubt that every decision Mike makes is going to be based on what's best for people with cystic fibrosis. And so some people are asking me, you know, hey, Preston, what does the future of CF look like? Oh, I'll tell you, I'm very confident that with Mike at the helm, with the CF Foundation staff that's so amazing that surrounds him, with you all, the CF community, the best is yet to come. The best is yet to come. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Michael Boyle, the next president and CEO of the CF Foundation.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Well, thank you, Preston. Preston, as you're headed back to your seat, I'm just going to say on behalf of everyone here, thank you for your leadership. And you know, you've modeled for us this remarkable combination of a heart for people with CF and a head that's full of science and innovative ideas and determination to defeat the disease. So we're gonna follow your example going forward as we move forward in our work. So good afternoon, everybody, and to those online. I'm honored to be stepping into this position, and I look forward to working alongside each of you to serve people with cystic fibrosis and their families in these upcoming years. You know, what a remarkable time it's been for cystic fibrosis, right? Just listening to Preston recount all of our achievements over these past years that we've accomplished together, I couldn't help but just sort of reflect on the emotions I've had this past week, even. You know, an amazing time of this faster than anticipated approval of the triple combination. You know, some of those emotions that I reflected, as I was reflecting, I thought about just the gratitude to the entire community, to many people in this room that have made this sort of week possible. Another emotion that came about was joy, just the joy of knowing the impact that the triple is going to have on so many people with cystic fibrosis. I know we can't wait to see this play out. But you know, along with these emotions of elation, there's been times this past week when I've actually had a heavy heart. A heavy heart because I recall the people that we've lost along the way, you know, to get to this very moment. And some of those I can actually call to mind right now. Also to people with CF and their families who are so excited for this breakthrough that's going to benefit others, but are still awaiting their own breakthrough. And it's this combination of emotions that it really makes me want to call out and be very clear about something that I think we all know deep down inside. And that is, we are not done with this story. We're not even close to being done with this story, right? I think it's this simple acknowledgement which allows us to sort of know where we are right now and to think about where we're headed. And it's also the perfect lead-in for the 2 points that I want to make today. The first point is this. We're about to head into the most transformative time in the history of cystic fibrosis. It's a moment we've been building to for 30 years, ever since the discovery of the gene. And we're going to use these next few days here at the meeting, together with the people online, to celebrate this transformative breakthrough, to discuss the implications and sort of the excitement of this breakthrough and what it means. And also prepare to step into and shape this future that we're looking forward to. But the second point is this. As much as we've accomplished, our most challenging and our most important work is still ahead of us. You know, for 60 years, whenever we've attacked and sort of come up with a new achievement, we've uncovered another challenge. And one of the things that's the most unique about the cystic fibrosis community is that we never shy away from those challenges. We attack them, we overcome them, and we push forward. So what is this most important and this most challenging work that I say is still ahead of us? What are these challenges that we need to attack and take on in these upcoming years? I would highlight 6 essential goals. Number 1, treating the underlying cause of cystic fibrosis and restoring high-level CFTR function for each and every person with CF, no matter what their genotype is, 100% of people. Number 2, continuing the rapid development of new and innovative therapies that address the complications and challenges that people with CF face today, continue to face. New antibiotics, new anti-inflammatories, new approaches to treating damaged lungs, including advances in lung transplantation, so we can make sure that people who are facing challenges today have the best possible life. Number 3, simultaneously preparing for a future where the vast majority of people with cystic fibrosis are adults, while also focusing on treating as early as possible to completely prevent many of the complications and features that right now we assume are part of life with cystic fibrosis. In the future, they don't have to be. Number 4, optimizing our medical practices and our medical systems to make sure that we provide the best care for the whole person with cystic fibrosis and achieve the best possible clinical outcomes. Number 5, continuing to engage and build an inclusive and supportive CF community that embraces people with cystic fibrosis, their families, care teams, research teams, and builds a mutually supportive community in which there's also mutual learning that accelerates our progress. And then finally, never ever wavering in the pursuit of our ultimate goal, to deliver a true genetic cure for all people with cystic fibrosis. So my pledge to you today is that the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation will do all that is within our power to work tirelessly and steadily in partnership with the CF community to achieve each of these goals. Now I want to revisit 2 of those goals just to highlight our level of commitment. The first goal, as you may recall, I said was to treat the underlying cause of CF for everybody with cystic fibrosis, no matter what the genotype. The second was to ultimately deliver a true genetic cure. Achieving these goals is going to require development of completely new non-modulator approaches using the most cutting-edge technology available today. That is why yesterday, the CF Foundation announced in a letter to the community, and now proudly announces to everyone here and to those online, the launch of the Path to a Cure, a $500 million challenge to researchers and industry across the globe to deliver the scientific advances that we need to treat the underlying cause for everyone with cystic fibrosis and to eventually develop a cure. Now, the reason we're looking to commit initial $500 million from now through 2025 is we want the world's best science to be focused on curing cystic fibrosis. This path to the cure is going to be the focus of today's plenary. Dr. Bill Skatch is actually going to give an overview of the path to the cure, talk some about the strategy and the details. Dr. Marie Egan is going to talk some about the challenges that we're going to face and how we're going to attack those. But I'm confident that someday we're going to look back at today and the launch of this initiative as the opening lines of another amazing chapter in the story of cystic fibrosis. Now, for those who didn't see, actually, as he was leaving, Preston handed me his Remember Me, Natasha Watts paperweight. Preston, thank you for this reminder. After 23 years as a CF physician, I have many similar reminders myself of people that I've cared for, continue to care for, but most importantly, learned from and learned to love. I know that everyone in this room has the same similar touch points and memories, as well as people online, the same similar touch points. My closing ask today is that over these next few days, as we celebrate this transformative breakthrough, and as we start to think about taking on this important and challenging work ahead, that each of us calls to mind those people and those relationships which anchor our deepest dedication to this cause, and which will inspire our best efforts going forward as we seek to write the next chapter in the story of cystic fibrosis and make CF stand for Cure Found. So with that, I'm now delighted to introduce Dr. Bill Skatch. Most everyone here likely knows Bill. Bill's a renowned cystic fibrosis professor and CFTR researcher. In his role, actually he's been in the field for about 30 years, almost a little over 30 years. Interestingly, his first day of CF research was the day the CFTR gene was discovered. So this is a full cycle today. I think it's perfect. As the CF Foundation's Senior Vice President of Research Affairs, Bill currently oversees all of the Foundation's basic and translational research, as well as our biotechnology and pharma support programs. He's going to be telling you more about the details about the path to a cure. Bill? Hey, brother. Go get him, man.
Well, thank you, Mike, and welcome, everyone. I couldn't be more pleased to be here today, and I really have two general tasks in the next few minutes. One is to kind of give you a broad outline of what the path to a cure really is. We've been working on this for quite some time, trying to really put it into perspective, and I'll try to give you a rough overview, and then I get to introduce Marie Egan, our plenary speaker today, who will tell you how we're actually going to do it, what's going on now, and what's going to happen in the future. So when I first started CF research in 1989, the gene was just cloned, as Mike said. We didn't really have any idea how mutations cause CF. We didn't know where this discovery would take us, and no one had even heard about CFTR modulators. And looking back now, thinking about where we've come, this is just, it's amazing. Back then, we knew that there was a promise that the future of CF would be better than the past, but we didn't know where that would play out. And I think the entire community, as Preston has said, everyone in this room and everyone around the world that's participated in this really should be extremely proud for all you've accomplished. But as I look forward, I think the future is even more exciting. We are now headed into an era when we will have a cure for the underlying defect of everyone with CF. And I'm absolutely convinced, given the way the science is playing out, that we will achieve that goal. So the path to a cure is our ambitious agenda to accelerate development of treatments for the underlying cause of CF in all people with CF and accomplish that goal. The commitment that Mike mentioned of $500 million will open new doors. It will create new opportunities. It's the largest program of its kind in our history, and it is specifically targeted for new therapeutics that will restore CFTR function in people who currently do not have treatments for the underlying cause of their disease. This initiative is really a challenge. It's a challenge to scientists, to clinicians, to clinical researchers, and to biopharma leaders to work together, bring your brightest ideas, and submit proposals that will accelerate the pace of progress and help ensure that people with the greatest need are the first in line for the next wave of new innovations. So what does the path to a cure really entail? Well, Dr. Egan will explain the science, but let me just walk you through some simple guiding principles. The path is really part of a continuing process which reflects the Foundation's relentless pursuit to treat the underlying defect in every person with CF. We've really been on this path ever since the CF Foundation was created. And we have followed many routes, but always with the same mission. The path to a cure really starts with the mutated gene. And it has three strategies: repair the broken CFTR protein, restore CFTR protein when none exists, and fix or replace the CFTR gene. Repairing the broken protein has already been a major step in treating the basic defect. And we are now seeing the remarkable benefits of past investments in modulator therapies. You'll hear more about how we are continuing to promote and foster new and improved modulators in tomorrow's lecture, Plenary 2. We are not finished with that goal yet, but let me be clear. Funding provided through this initiative will be earmarked for technologies for people that will not respond to modulators. And I think that's really, really critical. Our second strategy is to find ways to restore CFTR when none exists. One thing that we have learned over the years is that the best way to treat CFTR is to restore CFTR function in the proper cells. However, people that do not make CFTR protein simply won't respond to modulators. And there are several ways that that can be overcome. Some of these strategies would target specific mutations, like nonsense mutations or splice mutations. Some of these strategies could work for all mutations, what we call mutation agnostic. Progress is already being made in nonsense screening programs, tRNA therapies, mRNA therapies, oligonucleotide therapies, and you'll hear more about that from Dr. Egan in just a minute. This initiative will supercharge these efforts and expand these efforts, providing more ability to bring in larger groups, more groups, and tackle all possible therapies that have a chance of succeeding. This strategy is really designed to shortcut to reach 100% of people with CF as quickly as possible. The third strategy is fix or replace the defective CFTR gene. This is the ultimate solution for genetic diseases. And unlike the previous therapies that will likely require that will likely need to be taken repeatedly, this third approach has the potential to correct the defect permanently. There are really two ways to do this, and you'll hear more about them: gene transfer and gene editing. Gene transfer, also known as gene therapy, involves replacing a normal copy of the DNA to allow synthesis of normal CFTR protein, whereas gene editing is a way to repair the person's own DNA. As you'll hear in a few moments, the pace of scientific discovery in these areas is absolutely exploding. Major advances that once took years are now being reported almost every few weeks. This is the perfect time for bold investments that will move CF forward in this space. For gene transfer and gene editing to be successful, we need to figure out a few things. How to deliver the genetic material to the proper tissues and the proper cells, and we need to make the treatments last as long as possible. We expect that initial genetic therapies will probably target the lungs because they are the most accessible organs. But ultimately, our goal is to permanently correct CFTR in all affected tissues, and that is a cure. So that's a high-level overview. It gives you a little bit of perspective. I'm going to show you now a small animation that kind of summarizes what I've just told you. So how cool is that? The only thing is, it makes it look really easy. And I will say that this is an ambitious goal. This is probably one of the most ambitious goals that we've ever started. The road ahead is not straight, and we know that this is going to take time. But the science is here. We just need to apply it and build out the technology. In fact, results in the laboratory today tell us that this is possible, just as they did years ago when the early modulator work was getting started. In watching that science, I'm absolutely convinced that we can do this, and one day we truly will have a cure. As a first step on the path, I would like to lay out 5 mission-critical tasks. These are the highest priorities we have for the next 5 years, and this is where you all come in. We cannot do this alone. We need to continue working together to identify the challenges, solve the challenges, have small successes, and ultimately reach our final goal. First, we need preclinical model systems that will predict which genetic-based therapies have a chance of succeeding in people. It was the model-based systems that were absolutely critical for the success of modulators. We have some, we need more. Second, more work needs to be done to validate the target cells, identify which cells we actually need to create the genetic improvements in. I spent 6 hours yesterday in a meeting with the Stem Cell Consortium talking about this very problem. A group of scientists that are now investigating what are the stem cells in the lung, what do they look like, how are we going to attack those? Third, we need more efficient delivery systems that will induce long-term expression. This was the most difficult part in the early phase of gene therapy a decade ago. The vectors that we were delivering to tissues simply were not effective enough. And now there's a whole new range of vectors. There's a new way of finding vectors, screening hundreds of millions of variant particles to find the one that will target the right cell type. We're really in an entirely new situation right now. Fourth, we need gene editing methods that can be applied to clinical development. Gene editing is possible. Many labs around the world have fixed the CFTR gene and basically cured CF in a dish. What we now need are the techniques of gene editing which can be translated to patients. And that's really the next step. And finally, we need to move clinical We need to move these these treatments into clinical trials safely and as quickly as possible. I wake up every morning knowing that no matter how fast we go, we will never go fast enough. That it's just not acceptable to wait patiently. That is why we are committed to support any strategy that is scientifically sound and likely to accomplish these goals. We will invest these resources wisely, but if the opportunities are there, we will even exceed our $500 million goal. This is not a limit, this is our target. And finally, I want to reassure you that this initiative will not divert support from other critical programs. We have the resources now to do so much, as Preston said. Lung transplant, infection, mucus clearance, extrapulmonary disease, nutrition will all continue to advance as quickly as possible. As someone who has worked on CF for 30 years in my own laboratory, when I wasn't hang gliding, and for the foundation at the last 5 years, I am absolutely convinced that this is a seminal moment in CF. It is rare that we have such an opportunity, and we need to seize that opportunity. We have the vision, we have the resources, and we have the determination. I could not be more encouraged and more excited about the path we are embarking upon. And one of the leading physician scientists who will help us reach our goal is today's plenary speaker, Dr. Marie Egan. Dr. Egan is a professor and vice chair of research in pediatrics and professor of cellular and molecular physiology at Yale University. She is an internationally recognized expert in CF research and has dedicated her entire career to understanding and finding better ways to treat CF. She has received numerous awards for her research and her teaching. She is the perfect person to tell you where we are in this exciting journey and where we are going in the future. Please join me in welcoming Marie to the stage. Marie.
Wow. Good afternoon. I want to thank the Foundation for this incredible opportunity and an honor to speak with you today about emerging technologies that are going to change the lives of all people with cystic fibrosis. I attended my first North American CF conference in 1989, the year the gene was identified. And the meeting was life-changing for me because I realized I was joining a community that was just completely committed to improving the lives of all patients with CF, whether it was optimizing clinical care, whether it was looking for new treatments, or whether it was trying to find a cure. There's been incredible progress made over the 30 years, and we've made many breakthroughs. There's so much more that we really need to do, and that's because some of the people in our community who carry mutations that are more difficult to treat don't have those transformative therapies. I would like to introduce you to Will Corcoran. I've known him for years, actually since he was a toddler. He was a patient of mine at the Yale CF Center. I've been privileged to watch him grow up to be a fine young man. And he's someone who carries mutations that are not responsive to current modulator therapy. I think we should really just hear from Will.
When I was born, my parents were told there was a 50-50 chance I would live until I was 18. They didn't tell me that until I turned 18. I think my parents did a good job of course, reinforcing the fact that I had to take my CF seriously, but not making me scared of it. Hi, I'm Will. I'm 22 years old. I live in Burlington, Vermont, and I'm a recent college graduate. I have one rare and one nonsense mutation. Whenever I hear about new therapies and modulators for CF, I'm hopeful because I know one day I'm gonna get new therapies for myself. And even if these ones that are coming out right now won't directly impact me, they're helping the CF community. I have dreams of having a full career, travel all around the world. I have a passion for our environment and for the wildlife that surrounds us. I recently did my thesis on humans' perceptions of big cats around the world. My professor told me that people that do this type of work are able to get jobs around the world, and I had to tell him, because of my health, I'm not able to travel or live abroad like that. So I'm the youngest of 4 kids and the only boy. My sisters were always very supportive of me and including me in everything that we did. My parents have always taken a very active role in my CF, wanting to come to every appointment and be aware of the most recent research. One of the main challenges with my CF is just how time-consuming it is. You know, I spend about 2.5 hours a day doing breathing treatments, and I can sometimes get some work done, but it's a little bit hard when you're coughing your head off, maybe throwing up, and just trying to focus on your breathing. I'm a swimmer. I love to bike when I can. Just being outside as much as possible, going on hikes, walks in the woods with my friends, my dog, and things like that. There's a strong balance between mental health and physical health. So I think having a good social life and having friends that, let you forget about your CF for a little while you're with them is crucial to me feeling well. I appreciate the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation's motto of "No one left behind," because I think it's important. Of course, we have these modulator therapies and stuff for people, but they're not perfect for everyone, and of course, not everyone is covered. Right now, I am not able to do that type of work that would be my dream, but I'm hopeful that new therapies and things for CF would be able to come out that in the future I'll be able to do that type of research. It's what keeps me going, to know that in a year, 10 years, I'm gonna have new drugs, treatments, or some type of therapy that will improve my health. My dream for the future is when a newborn baby is born with CF, that they're able to be treated and cured on the spot. All I can do is stay positive and keep myself well so that when there's new therapies for people with rare or nonsense mutations like me, I'm able to benefit from them and hopefully still be able to live a very fulfilling life.
So as you can see, Will works really hard to have his very normal life. He takes many medications, does many therapies to treat his complications of CF, but there are no approved CFTR modulators that he can take on a daily basis to optimize his CFTR protein. Many of the technologies that we talk about today, like RNA therapies that can be given periodically, and gene therapies that could lead to a permanent cure, will be especially important for Will in his journey for an effective preventative therapy. So how do we get CFTR to work in everyone? I think we're going to need to consider some novel approaches. So novel approaches mean new therapeutic tools. So we have a bunch of new therapeutic tools that are in our toolbox, and most of those are nucleic acid therapies. However, before we get to those, I do need to mention small molecule therapies for nonsense mutations. So right now, there are 4 major programs that are in their early days, and when you compare them to the established programs for non-nonsense mutations, and they include the CFF Laboratory, the Southern Research Consortium, Icogen, and Elox Pharmaceuticals. And between them, they are screening millions of compounds for nonsense mutations. If you want to put this in perspective, the compound screening for the lead Vertex compounds was only 350,000. And that's compared to 3.5 million that are being screened in these programs. To me, this shows incredible dedication and the tenacity of the researchers who are looking at this when it comes to finding a small molecule for nonsense mutations. It also tells me that this problem is a bit more complicated than initially hoped. When it comes to fixing this problem, it's clearly a challenge. But this community always overcomes the challenges. So let's get back to our toolbox. So what approaches will we need to understand, and what's going to have to become part of our vocabulary? Well, there are RNA therapies, there are gene transfer therapies, gene editing therapies, and cell-based therapies. So picture's worth 1,000 words, and a video probably a couple million. So let's see the potential power of genetic-based therapies.
Cystic fibrosis is a complex disease that affects multiple organs, including the lungs, where it causes persistent infections. These infections occur because abnormally thick and sticky mucus prevents the cilia, small hair-like structures on top of cells lining the airway, from moving dirt and germs out of the lungs. Cystic fibrosis is the result of changes, or mutations, in the CFTR gene, a piece of genetic code found in DNA that tells cells how to make CFTR protein. The CFTR protein helps cells control the movement of salt into and out of the cell and fluid across the airway tissue, which keeps mucus at a healthy level inside the lungs. But with CF, the mutated genes give cells the wrong instructions, so they make an abnormal CFTR protein that does not function, resulting in the buildup of mucus. Fortunately, promising therapies are being developed to treat the genetic cause of the disease. One such treatment being developed is RNA therapy. When the CFTR mutation appears in a patient's DNA, it also shows up in the messenger RNA, which is a replica of the DNA sequence. This mRNA carries instructions out of the cell nucleus to ribosomes in the cytosol, where proteins are made. Mutated RNA makes a non-functional protein, too little protein, or no protein at all. If successful, RNA therapy would either replace the faulty messenger RNA with the new mRNA with the correct instructions, or repair the defective RNA. Once inhaled into the lungs and entering airway cells, new messenger RNA would be able to make normal, functional CFTR protein that moves to the surface of the cell, where it adjusts the amount of salt and fluids flowing into the airway space. The restored flow returns mucus levels to a healthy state, making it possible for the cilia to move freely, removing dirt and germs from the airway. Another possible way to restore CFTR protein is gene transfer. Instead of inserting RNA, gene transfer would work by inserting a normal CFTR DNA sequence into the cell so that it can make functional CFTR protein. Gene therapy could be inhaled or given through an IV. However, getting DNA into lungs is challenging. Cells are surrounded by protective membranes that are designed to keep out foreign objects. And in the lungs of people with CF, cells are also covered with a thick layer of mucus. Specialized delivery mechanisms called vectors are being developed which would take the new correct CFTR gene into the cells. There are multiple types of vectors derived from viruses or synthetic molecules. Gene transfer could potentially work on anyone with CF, no matter what kind of mutation they have. Gene editing would repair CFTR mutations in the person's own DNA. There are multiple gene editing techniques, including CRISPR-Cas9, zinc-fingered nucleases, as well as others. Each of these techniques remove the mutations from the gene. To fix this damage, the cell puts in the correct DNA sequence for a functional CFTR gene. Gene editing can be done with cells inside the body, or in cells that have been taken out, corrected in the lab, and put back into the body. Gene editing can either be tailored for each specific CF mutation or designed to correct many or all mutations. Gene editing changes the DNA permanently. If CFTR mutations in stem cells can be edited, all future cells derived from these stem cells will make correct CFTR protein, making repeated treatments unnecessary. We're at an extraordinary time where science has made incredible advances. However, there is still critical work necessary to develop these therapeutics so they will benefit all people with CF and, one day, provide them with a cure.
Okay, it's pretty much a wow. Okay, how powerful, how exciting are all of these technologies? So I think we need to take a deeper dive, and let's look at where we are in CF with these technologies. The first thing we're going to do is examine RNA-based therapies. So what are our options, and who benefits? So options, there's tRNA, or transfer RNA, and that's specifically for nonsense mutations. There's mRNA, which you saw in the video, which is mutation agnostic, so it should be able to help everyone. And then there are antisense oligonucleotides, and those can be designed to help a variety of mutations, including splice mutations. Okay, so first, let's talk about this tRNA, or transfer RNAs. What is a transfer RNA? So, and how can engineered transfer RNAs help with nonsense mutations? Well, let's focus on the graphic on the left. You can see there's a blue strand that's running along the bottom there. That's the mRNA. And it's being decoded by the ribosome. And on my graphics, it's the big white dot. Okay. So this is being translated into a developing protein. And that's that line of dots that's rising out of that chain. So how does this happen? Well, transfer RNAs really are specialized RNAs that help with this decoding. And they bring amino acids to the ribosome, which then helps build the protein. And as you can see in our messenger RNA on the slide, there's a big giant stop sign, which is a stop mutation. So normally, when the stop mutation is hit, the developing protein just stops developing. So what if you could engineer a transfer RNA that, instead of reading that as stop, put in a different amino acid and allowed that developing protein to continue to develop? Well, that's exactly what's been going on in Dr. John Lewick's lab. And he's engineered transfer tRNAs that have been able to allow for read-through or protein production for both G542X and W1282X. And you can see those are the blue arrows that are on the right-hand side of the slide. So if you want to hear more about this approach, you should go to Symposia 20, and there are a bunch of abstracts you can review, and they can show the possibilities of this approach that can override nonsense mutations. Now let's talk about RNA replacement, or RNA therapies, messenger RNA therapies. So you know messenger RNA is the blueprint for making proteins like CFTR, and we saw that in the video. Normally, messenger RNA leaves the nucleus and runs through the protein production part of the cell. And you can see that on our slide. Bottom is the nucleus. We have the endoplasmic reticulum, which makes the protein. And we get CFTR to the surface, which is at the top of the slide. So one way to restore CFTR is to deliver a messenger RNA to the cell so it can produce normal CFTR. And this may sound really easy, but messenger RNA is very delicate, and it needs to be protected while it's traveling to get into a cell. And getting it into a cell, it's pretty big, so we need to be able to have a special delivery system. And our special delivery system on this slide is that brown circle, the blue circle with the little antenna. And that's the delivery system to get to messenger RNA into the cell. Once it does get into the cell, we can have it recognized by the protein assembly apparatus of the cell, and then you can make a proper protein. You might say, Marie, it's a lot of ifs. Is it ever going to happen? So I want to just share with you some work from Translate Bio, which is investigating the potential of mRNA for CF. So they've developed this specialized carrier, which you can see on the bottom left of the slide. And the carrier holds mRNA. This drug is inhaled into the lung, and then lung function is measured. So interim results, this is a trial that's ongoing, and interim results from this trial were announced this summer, and that's shown on the graphic on the right. And I want you to see that there were multiple doses given, but I want you to concentrate on the 16 milligram dose, those are the bars sort of in the middle. And what you can see there is when subjects inhaled 3 doses of the 16 milligrams, there was an over 10% change in their % predicted FEV1. So their lung function improved. I think this is really very exciting. And it really makes it look as if mRNA therapy isn't just a dream, but potentially a reality. I'd have to say this is very early, and so we shouldn't get too excited, but I really think I'd want to know more about where this study is going and how this therapy will turn out. So next, we're going to take a look at antisense RNA oligonucleotide therapies. That's a mouthful. We will now call it ASOs, okay? So what are ASOs? So they're really small pieces of single-strand RNA, and they're designed to do a number of things. You can design them to block RNA or messenger RNA production or read-through. You can enable them to degrade RNA, messenger RNA, and you can even get them to upregulate or enhance messenger RNA. And so, you can think about this, and depending on your disease, it can be very helpful to do any one of those things. So presently, this kind of therapy has already been FDA approved for a number of diseases, for eye disease, for muscular dystrophy. So there are 4 approved therapies. It's very exciting. So this is actually a reality, not necessarily for CF at this point, but for other diseases. Just to remind you that the 4 drugs that have been approved, well, there were over 40 clinical trials that have been looking at these ASOs as potential therapies. But I only bring that up to remind us all that we're going to have a robust pipeline, because even the most promising agents sometimes don't cross that therapeutic finish line. So what about in CF? How are you going to use this in CF? Well, there are a number of ways, but we're going to concentrate on splice mutations. Okay. So on the top panels on this slide, you can see that sometimes mutations in CFTR can introduce a cryptic site that leads to splicing of an aberrant messenger RNA and then no functional protein. So Dr. Karam and her colleagues kind of thought about this and said, what if you could block that cryptic site? What if you could design a little ASO and it would block it? Then perhaps you could get normal messenger RNA and you'd wind up with normal protein. And so on the bottom of the slide, you can see their lead ASO actually did that. It corrected the splicing defect, and it also returned CFTR-related chloride currents to airway cells that had the 3849 splicing mutation. If you look at that graphic, you can see the yellow line. So those are cells that were treated with the ASO, and they have a forskolin IBMX increase in chloride current that's blocked by a CFTR-specific inhibitor, which really is suggestive that CFTR function is restored. Again, pretty exciting. So if we look at RNA therapies for CF, you can see that there are a number of approaches there that could have potential as therapeutics in CF. In fact, there are many companies that are working to bring these to the clinical arena. You can see the list behind me. And so it's an exciting time, but there are challenges. First challenge, delivery. How are you going to get the mRNA or the oligos or tRNAs to the cells that you need? Okay, stability and longevity. Once you treat people with these RNA therapies, how long is it going to last? How often are you going to have to treat them? And then we have to think about the potential of toxicity or off-target effects. And all of these will need to be looked at and monitored carefully. So what's next in our toolbox? Let's go to gene transfer therapies and gene editing therapies. Okay. So for gene therapy, okay, what are we talking about? We're talking about taking a gene and transferring a healthy copy into cells, so a brand new copy. Okay. For gene editing, what we're really talking about is fixing or repairing the copy of CFTR with the mutation. And then you're going to need a whole bunch of editing tools, which we'll talk about in just a minute. All right. So for some of you in the audience who've been around since 1989, you might be asking, gene therapy, it's not a new idea. It's been part of our CF community for many years. In fact, that first North American conference I went to, gene therapy was the topic of the plenary. But our past attempts have not been very successful. So why do I think it's so different now? I'm sorry. Well, a lot's been learned. In fact, there's 30 years of experience, 30 years of research that has moved this field forward. So it's a very different landscape than it was in 1989. So gene therapy, just to give you a sense, it fits into this larger umbrella of regenerative medicine. And in 2019, it's incredibly vast. There are over 1,000 phase 1 studies, 500 phase 2 studies, and 100 phase 3 studies going on across the world. And in 2019, you should know gene therapy is a reality for a number of diseases. There are FDA-approved gene therapies. They're present for oncology or for cancer, for beta thalassemia, for retinal diseases, and for spinal muscular atrophy type 1. So SMA type 1 is a devastating disease, okay, where most children who have this disease die from complications of their neurodegenerative disease within the first 2 years of life. They lose muscle tone, they can't breathe spontaneously, and they succumb to their illness. But now that there's gene therapy that's been approved for SMA1, things are a little different. And I want to take a moment so that we can all hear about a little girl named Evelyn. And I think we should see her story because I think it tells more about the power of gene therapy than anything else that I could say to you today.
This is really the first time that we've been able to apply gene therapy to any neuromuscular disease.
Today was a very special day for Evelyn. She was given genetic therapy for her missing SMN gene.
Babies with SMA are missing a gene vital for development. Through a one-time injection, gene therapy replaces this missing gene. For Evelyn, this gene therapy worked.
We start seeing changes as early as 2 months after treatment.
She started to push, and she started to get more active, holding her head up. And a little after 3-4 months, she rolled over on her own.
Now 3-year-old Evelyn challenges Dr. Mendel to a dance-off at her annual follow-up appointment.
She comes back after 3 years, and she runs up to me and hugs me and says, "Dr. Mendel, I love you."
Okay. So, I think you can see that in 2019, gene therapy is a little different. It's a success story for at least some diseases. And, all of these cases where they've seen success, researchers have really been able to optimize the delivery of gene therapy vectors, and they've been able to target very specific areas where the underlying disease is really most manifest. And so I know that for CF, things are a little different, right? And so where are we in CF? Well, it's been a couple of years since there's been a large clinical trial. The last one was performed by the UK consortium. And although it showed that inhaling a gene therapy vector was very safe, and that it was well tolerated, can be inhaled into the lung, the efficacy was really very modest. And this in part was probably due to ineffective delivery of the gene to the tissues that needed it most. And so again, that concept of delivery is really going to be a challenge for us. So where are we now? Oops. So we are in a space where delivery is the main focus when it comes to gene therapy. Finding highly effective vectors that can deliver the CFTR gene to all the necessary cells is where the research is really focused. And these vectors, they can be derived from viruses like AAV is adeno-associated virus, or lentiviruses, or they can be polymers and lipid-based, so non-viral vectors. So with regard to viral vectors, investigators have, in the past had been relying on nature. Nature's really good at developing viruses that can get to, certain cells and places, but investigators aren't relying on just nature alone now. Instead, they're working on designing the best virus capsid they can. And for example, if we look at the slide here, this is a strategy. It shows a strategy used by Steins and colleague at the University of Iowa to develop these designer vectors with a much higher affinity for airway cells that we need to correct. So what they do is they develop this library of all the proteins that are in viral capsids, and then they mix them up and match them in multiple variations. And they delivered them to the airways of the pig. And then they looked at all of the cells from the pig to really see which of these vectors was best at infecting the cells and delivering the cargo that we wanted to deliver. And this approach, can be used not only to identify what's best for the lung, but you can use it to identify what's best for any tissue that you really wanted to target. And also, there are similar strategies you can use for non-viral vectors, for the polymers and for the lipids. And so this is sort of a state of the art of how you find the best vector. And these state-of-the-art techniques are being used by all of the major CF gene therapy programs. And they're really looking to find and identify the optimal delivery vectors for high efficiency delivery to the cells and the tissues that we need to correct in CF. So now we're going to move to gene editing technologies. They all share a common theme, and that's to edit or to correct a mutation. So these approaches include CRISPR-Cas9, zinc finger nucleases, TALENs, and triplex-forming peptide nucleic acids. There are a number of clinical trials that are looking at these therapies in the clinical space. I think one of the ones that might have been in the news most recently is a trial for sickle cell. And if I'm remembering correctly, there was a woman with sickle cell in this great state of Tennessee, I think is where she's being treated. And she was on the news commenting that she was the first genetically modified human for sickle cell disease. So these are definitely in up-and-coming therapies. So where are we with gene editing in CF? Well, you should know that CFTR has been edited and corrected with a whole variety of approaches, with zinc fingers, with CRISPR, with TALENs, and airway cells have been corrected, intestinal cells have been corrected, stem cells have been corrected, and even CF animals have had tissues corrected. And so it's a very robust space, and incredible science is ongoing. I'm going to take a minute to tell you, review the power of gene editing by just telling you about triplex-forming PNA-DNA technology. And this is a therapy that's not nearly as well known as some of the other technologies, but it is work that I have been involved with my collaborator, Peter Glaser and Mark Salzman. So just to outline on the top panel here, you can see the way the PNA-DNA, the triplex-forming PNA-DNA works is you make a small peptide nucleic acid, and that you design it to bind close to a mutation that you want to correct. The PNA is delivered with donor DNA to the cell, and then the cell's endogenous repair systems get alerted that, oh my gosh, something's a little wrong, and it allows for recombination and correction of the mutation. The PNA and DNA combination is delivered in a nanoparticle, and we've actually delivered those nanoparticles to airway epithelial cells from CF patients that carry either the F508del mutation, W1282X, or G542X. And that, on this slide here, on the far right, the top panel is chloride efflux after, or short circuit current after these cells have been treated with the PNA and DNA. And we've been able to restore CFTR activity in both W1282X, G542X, and also in Delta F508. We've also been able to design these PNA and DNA nanoparticles and to deliver them in vivo, either by inhalation or systemically, to mouse models of CF. And when the particles are delivered topically to the airway, we can see changes in the respiratory tract. And although research is still in its early stages, when these nanoparticles are delivered systemically, either in utero or to adult animals, we can see changes in multiple tissues that are affected in CF, including the respiratory tract and the gastrointestinal tract. So I think this is kind of gives you a sense of the power of gene editing, and, but it's early days. So now we're going to focus on cell-based therapies. Okay. So cell-based therapies, they're pretty exciting. For these therapies, we need to correct the genetic defects ex vivo, and then we return those corrected cells to the patient. So this approach has been really effective in cancer, especially CAR T-cell therapy. So you could imagine that this might be very easy to do in cancer, but how are we going to do this in CF? What would this look like, right? So you'd need to take out cells, correct them, and then you'd need to return these cells to the appropriate organs. So you'd need to get progenitor cells from the lung, the gut, and then once they're returned, they need to function as a proper airway cell or a proper gut cell or a pancreas, right? That seems pretty bold. Well, if we look over on the right-hand side, we actually have proof of principle that this might be easier, well, not easier, but more plausible than you might think. So here, investigators from Stanford taken primary airway cells, the basal cells, okay, and they've treated them with CRISPR-Cas9 in AAV vectors, so they're pulling all the technologies that we've already talked about. They've treated those cells, and then they've purified those basal cells, looking for just the corrected cells. And then they've been able to give them back to the rat's sinus. You might say, oh, well, why the rat's sinus? Well, the sinus cavity is part of the respiratory tract. And once you put them back in the sinus cavity, they actually start to look and work like sinus cells. So this preliminary data was presented at the Frontiers meeting in June, and it was very encouraging, and I can't wait to hear updates from this group. So if we recap, we have a number of novel approaches that get right to the heart of the problem. Many advances in the field make these therapies much more feasible. And some of these novel therapies are already transitioned to the clinic. So what are our challenges in CF? Well, we have a multi-system disease. We've got the respiratory tract, the GI tract, we got pancreas, sweat gland, you can read the list, and that's just a partial list. And then we also have the mucus. So there are lots of barriers to delivery, lots of different cells we're going to need to treat. If we just look at the respiratory tract, even the respiratory tract, every region's a little different. There's just so many cell types. You know, how are we going to get a handle on this? Well, thank goodness we have new technologies, because new technologies like single-cell RNA-seq, which I will not have a lot time to discuss, which I know you're all disappointed in, but it's a really powerful technique that's allowed us to look really closely at the cells that make up the airway, okay? So they basically can allow you to fingerprint the single cells, you know, genetically. And so if you look at this graphic on the right-hand side, I know it kind of looks like modern art or somebody's toddler's art, but it's something called a spring plot. And what it shows is that the single-cell RNA-seq data from airway cells of the mouse and the human can be grouped and based on the genes that are activated and the transcripts that are produced. And it's really important because it's helped us identify cells that we never would have really thought about in the airway that highly express CFTR, and they're called ionocytes. And so we can see that CFTR expression in these cells is huge compared to the ciliated cells, the goblet cells, the basal cells. But what we don't understand yet, or we're just getting a handle on, is which of these cells is going to be most important to target, and what do they do differently, and how is that going to affect us when we're trying to develop these therapies for CF. So, you know, like when you take a conventional drug, right? It's absorbed in the GI tract, reaches all the cells sort of evenly, but these new technologies, they're not going to treat every cell equally. So we really need to understand this biology very well, and it's what's most important to fix. So, you know, clearly, if we're going to be successful, there are some challenges here that we're going to need to tackle. You know, we need to do this collaboratively as a community. And, you know, I'm absolutely sure we can do this because we have an amazing community and it's done amazing things to date. So we're going to need some new tools. And we have lots of tools. And those tools are going to really help us understand how we're going to get over to the next leap and really bring these new technologies to the clinical realm. So we're going to need things like animal models that will let us know which cells we've actually targeted. We're going to need better human model systems, spheres and chips and 3D models. We're going to need some better readouts and better ways to screen vectors. And then when we have all of that in place, and we do because the CF Foundation is clearly going to give us those resources, then we'll be able to talk to our colleagues and say, all right, we're ready for those clinical trials. So what is that going to look like? And what is success going to look like? I think that for us, the goal is for everyone to have a therapy to prevent disease, 100% of people. My friend Will, right? He needs to be in this goal for therapy. He's a young man, that needs us to partner with him. We need to work as a united community and move these technologies forward so we can provide him and everybody in our community with a therapy that is going to prevent disease. And ultimately, with a partnership, the scientists and the researchers and the clinicians, patients, families, and industry, we're going to find a cure for all. So I want to thank you for your attention. I want to thank John Lewick and Bathsheba Karim for sharing their slides with me. Everybody in my collaborators and research group. Will Cochran and his family. Everybody at the Yale CF Center, our amazing team, our patients, our families, our research team, and most of all, you for your attention, and the Foundation for the opportunity to share this exciting time. Thank you.